All right, I am with Bert Hoffman, and he is a Korean War era veteran. And we are going to be talking through some things about his life and his what his involvement was during the wartime period. So, Mr. Hoffman, if you can kind of explain, where you grew up, how what your child life was like, and how you became involved in the military in that particular time period.
All right, my name is Bert Hoffman, and I was born in Elport, Iowa. Uh, I can't remember. I think we lived there for till I was in the third grade, and then we moved away, and I went to a school in the country called the Advent, which is no longer there. They tore it down, and from there, Dad had rented a farm down by Elport, so we moved in 1947. We moved back down on the farm, and I was in eighth grade then. So I finished my school at Wolf Creek Country School in the eighth grade, and then I went to Elport High School, where I graduated in 1952 in the spring, and in the fall I was drafted into the service.
Now, during that time period when you were drafted, was that all a lottery? Was that how that worked?
I don't know. We were 20 years old. They took everybody.
Okay. So you're drafted.
Yeah.
What next?
Well, after I got drafted, I had to go to Elkader to the vets thing up there, and then they sent us to Des Moines, where we were sworn in. And then after that, the next day, I think it was, they put us on a bus, and we went to I can't remember the fort, in Missouri. And we were there for, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 days. We got our clothes issued and shoes issued and everything that we were going to need. And I think we was put on a plane then to Fort Bliss, Texas, down by El Paso, and went to 8 weeks of infantry training first. And that was terrible. And after the 8 weeks, I figured, well, we're going to have another 8 weeks of basic training here yet. Well, behold, they sent us down to another base in Texas at Fort Bliss, heavy artillery, 90 millimeter guns, which they were big. And I took 8 weeks of that training. And when we were in the infantry, we walked all the time. Everywhere we went, we walked. Sometimes 20 miles a day. And then when we transferred to our heavy artillery, we rode everywhere, which, was quite a distance. But then and we had a parade every Saturday. There's a lot of people came in, had to dress all up. And after that training was over, they said, well, some of you are going to stay in the United States and you'll get a 30-day leave. The rest of you are going to go overseas and you'll get a 9-day delay en route, which that was me. And they said, you're probably going to end up in Korea. So.
And this is 1952, correct?
That would have been 1953.
1953, okay.
Yeah, we took them training. Well, it was the first of the year anyway.
Okay, real close.
Yeah,
we were at 52, 53.
So anyway, I was only home maybe 3 days at the most, I think. And then had to go to Dubuque and take a train to Washington, state of Washington, Fort Lewis, I think it is, out there. Well, when we got there, they started calling names off, and there I'm standing. My name was never called. Then he said, we don't have no orders for you.
So the names they were calling were for what purpose?
For to go on a ship to overseas.
Okay.
that was, and he just said, oh, there were, I don't know how many of us were standing there, and he said, we don't have no orders for you.
All right.
And I thought that was awful funny.
Yeah, that's awfully strange.
Yeah, and they said, well, you just have to stay here till we can find out what's going on. And I think it must have been, probably 3 weeks, maybe, something like that. And they said, well, they found your orders. They're in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
So they said, we're going to put you on a ship for overseas. And by that time you get over there, your orders should be there. Well, I don't know how long it took. It took pretty close to a month to get ship go across. And we had, I think there was a bunch of Canadian soldiers on with us too. So then we landed in Yokohama, I think it was. I think that was the name of the place. And we was there a couple days, and they said, well, we got your orders. You're supposed to have went to Korea, but being all this delay, they had to replace you with somebody else. So you're going to stay here in Japan. So I said, oh, that was good fortune.
That was very good fortune.
So we got on a train and went to Fukuoka City, Japan. That's way down, I don't know, it was clear to the end of Japan, I think. They said it was 100 miles from Korea. And we were up on a great big hill, all kinds of heavy artillery set up there. And it was just our job to, every day, go out, and check them out.
So were you part of the defense of Japan? Is that how that worked, or were you
Yes, see, after the war, after Japan surrendered, they left troops over there.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I imagine there's troops there, yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but there probably is. And every once in a while, they take us out like on maneuvers. There was an Air Force base right there below us, and we could see the planes flying out. They said they were going to Korea. Mm-hmm. I suppose bombers and fighter jets and whatever that was there. But then I stayed there, I don't remember how many months it was now. But anyway, at the end of our service, they said, well, you're due to go back to the States. So they put us on a train and took us to Tokyo. And we stayed, they didn't have any planes right then to go. So we had, I think it was a week we stayed there. And one day they called us out and said, well, the only plane that's going to the United States is a transporter plane with bodies on from Korea. Mm. They were in caskets, and they said there won't be any seats to sit on. You would have to sit on the floor. I don't know how many hands went up in the air.
Sure.
Anyway, they had a hard time taking off because they had too much weight on. So they went back, taxied back in, and took some fuel off. They said, well, now we'll have enough to get to Hawaii. So they landed in Hawaii and said, we're going to need the fuel. We have to fill it up to get to the United States, so you men are going to have to stay here. So we unloaded, and they took us to an Air Force base there, and we stayed there for, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, something like that. And all we had to do was be out every morning for roll call to see if we had a plane to go to the United States. Mm-hmm. And after all that time, we toured Hawaii, and And one day they said, well, you're lucky. We got a plane that's going to the United States. So we landed at the Oakland Air Force Base, I guess it was. Yeah, Oakland Air Force Base. And from there, we got on a bus and took us to Colorado Springs, where we got discharged.
And what year was that?
54.
54. So from late 52 to sometime.
Yeah, I went in, I was sworn in the 5th of September of 52, and I was discharged the 29th of August of 54.
So about 2 years.
Yeah.
About 2 years in the
Been
service.
in for 2 years, yeah.
What was when you were first drafted back in September of 52? What was your general feeling? Because you understood that there was a war going on in Korea, and what was your
I had
feeling?
no idea what was going to happen, you know. Just all of us were about the same age, I guess, and I had nothing to think about it or anything. I did till we started going for basic training and stuff, and then it kind of sunk in a little bit.
Sure.
Of what could happen. And
what were your parents' thoughts at that time?
Well, they didn't think too much. They just said, son, you've never been away from home. This is going to be quite an experience. And it was.
Had your dad served during World War II?
No. No, he worked for the WPA.
Okay.
He helped build a dam in Guttenberg. That's one of the big projects he worked on. That took him a long time. But I don't think he got paid very much.
Sure.
Back then. So, but it was quite an experience, I'll tell you that.
What was the general feeling? You know, I'm a child of the 1970s and 1980s. You know, big time Cold War was going on at the time. There in the late 40s, early 50s, while you were growing up, was just the beginning of it. What were your thoughts towards it? Did you know much about it? Was it?
You know, I had uncles and that was in, I guess it'd be the Second World War. Let's see, it was two of them, I believe, that they both made it out. But they were in there. My Uncle Vince was supposed to be coming home. He had everything ready to come home, and they kept him for another year. And
how much did you know about Korea beforehand? Did you even know where Korea was located when they said?
Well, I knew it was
Private
the only thing I knew was the other side of Japan.
Private Hoffman, you're going to Korea.
I knew it was the other side of Japan, and I had a couple friends, schoolmates, I should say, that went over, and the one that got killed right away was Ivan L. Williams from Elport, or Tickletown, I guess they called it up there. It's East Elport.
Yes.
And he got killed right away. I guess I don't know, shell landed in his foxhole or what, blew him all to pieces. And another one was Bob Ovis. He was over there. He was from Elport too. And he said, Bert, he said, the only thing I had problem with was keeping my hind end down. And he put it different, but
sure.
He got shrapnel in it a couple times.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
What was your job supposed to be? You said you had trained on the 90 millimeter.
Yes.
Artillery.
I was the loader. Shells weighed 43 pounds, and the guns were run by radar. So you had a thing where you had to shove your shell into that, and then they had another guy would turn the crank and set it so it would go up. It would shoot 10 miles. But for whatever radar said, they set the crank and turn it. The head would turn, And it was a miracle how that worked. Did it go off when it got there?
Mm-hmm.
So, but it was, they were awful heavy, and we could fire 22 a minute,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty fast. And but I thought, I got to thinking about that. We're going to Korea. I said, well, probably being it's a 90 millimeter outfit, we'll probably be quite a ways behind the front lines.
Mm-hmm.
We might be okay. So.
Mm-hmm. So you were very fortunate. You never had to fire that weapon in action,
no,
correct?
Just in training.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 55 millimeter machine guns. There was 4 guns. You set in this turret. And they had one trigger for each side. A lot of firepower going out at one time.
Mm-hmm.
They were big.
Sure. So what was it like coming back home after the war? Or after your service was over in 54?
I got back, coming back home, everybody I knew had either got married or moved away.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like a stranger here.
Mm-hmm. And then you married after that?
Let's see, I was home. I got married in 56.
Okay. And raised kids back here in the Elkport Edge. You currently live in Edgewood, Iowa.
Yeah.
Is where we currently are today.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I got married in 56. When we got married, I lived in Elkport, and we moved to Colesburg. And from there, we moved to Edgewood, and we lived here till 83. And then my wife divorced me. I worked at John Deere.
Mm-hmm.
She thought there was another guy who was going to treat her better or something. And she found out he didn't want her at all afterwards. So I was alone till 84. See, 84 I got married to a different woman.
Mm-hmm.
She had 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
So she's up in the home now. But we had a good marriage.
Great. So what are your thoughts on what you did for your country?
Well, I grew up on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't actually grow up on the farm. I started working on the farm when I was 11 years old. I got 50 cents a day, driving a team of horses. And 50 cents a day that was a lot of money back then, in the early 40s. And Dad worked at the same place, and I think he got, I can't remember if it was $15 a week or $20. It wasn't that much, but.
And how much were you making as a private in the Army?
I had started out in the States at $78 and something, I think it was.
A week, a month?
Oh, month. Yeah. And then when I went overseas, I got overseas pay, which went to $122 a month. But I didn't need money over there. What was I going to spend it on?
Sure.
So I put it all at home all the time. Dad put it in a savings account, and I told him when I was coming home, he went out and bought me a car with the money I saved. So I had a fairly new car when I got home.
Nice.
That was quite an experience.
Did you go back to farming after you came back home?
No, I had some of the guys that I had known were working at Farley and Lecture, so I didn't know. I went down there and started out as what the heck did I start? $1.07 an hour back then, and it was a woodworking place. They built doors, windows, I don't know what all, but it wasn't a very good place to work. But I did stay there, I guess, for till 1960. And I went out to John Deere, and I got hired out there. And there I started at $2.17 an hour. And from then on, up through the years, when I retired, I think I was getting 12 something an hour. But that was just straight wage.
Mm-hmm.
But I was always on piecework, so that it amounted to a lot more. So I think I think if you figured with the piecework, I probably was making 18 something an hour. And our insurance was free. Didn't have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Holidays, we got it. I don't know how many holidays, 6, 7, 8 of them, whatever it was, paid holidays. And we had 6 personal days that we could take off and get paid for. But I usually saved them for a sick day and then I'd always save a couple days for deer hunting. And I didn't waste them days. I made sure, like, the only bad thing was when I retired. I retired the 31st of March, I think, of '89, and I had 4 weeks vacation coming, and I hadn't used any of my casual days yet, 6 of them, and so I tried to, instead of going the 31st, I wanted to take my 4 paid holidays and my 6 days, and they wouldn't let me. They said, we'll pay you for them. You signed up for the 31st, that's when you have to go.
Very nice. Looking back on your service, in the military, would you do it again? Not that you had much of a choice back in '52.
Probably nowadays it would be a lot nicer. I think things have changed a lot. I mean, we were treated like dirt when we went in. Some of the darndest things you had to do was crazy. I mean, it was downright terrible. And I think as time went on, they finally got rid of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I suppose nowadays it's probably pretty decent. I know that they tried to get me to re-enlist. They was going to make me sergeant. I was corporal, and they said, if you re-enlist, we'll make you sergeant. I said, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
It didn't make me sergeant all the time that I was in charge of a gun outfit. I mean, I was ahead of it.
Okay.
I was acting sergeant. They could have made me sergeant then, and they didn't. So I said, no, I'm not. I said, you could have made me sergeant a long time ago, but you didn't. So I'm going home.
Good for you.
Yep.
Good for you. Well, thank you very much for this. This was very interesting. So
I hope it helped you.